All right, a voter from Mesa, Arizona told the news that he enthusiastically voted for Trump a few months back, but now he's starting to get worried. He's starting to get skeptical about the company Trump is keeping around him because it's just billionaires on top of billionaires on top of billionaires. And I'm not going to say I told you so. You guys can say that to the MAGA in the comments, but how many times did we tell them that Trump and Elon Musk aren't buddy-buddy because they're trying to help America, but then Elon Musk has his own corporate and personal interests. He has his own goals to profit maximize, and none of those goals involve helping you or the average American citizen out, and people are starting to realize these conflicts of interest are taking over the White House, and I'd love to break this down, so make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. And this reads, some Trump voters are skeptical of his opening moves to embrace fellow billionaires. Before we break down the story of Enrique Lopez from Mesa, Arizona, I have one more story that you guys will really appreciate titled, My Conservative Dad Flipped Immediately After the Return to Office Executive Order. This dude's dad, who is a staunch Republican, voted for Trump multiple times, is now calling and saying he will never vote Republican again. Let me break this down. It says, my dad is nearly 60 years old and works a fully remote government job. He is a few years out from retirement, and after the executive order was signed to return to the office, he completely flipped. He is writing politicians vowing to never vote Republican again. He is having to consider early retirement because he's probably too old to find a job that pays as well as his current one. I was in shock to hear this when I called my mom last night to speak about everything going on. She is a lifelong Democrat, thank God. But this says, who the fuck knows if this energy will maintain through the midterms and so on, but damn if I am not huffing some serious hope. This then says, some context is necessary regarding my father. He is a lifelong conservative since joining the military fresh out of high school. He served 20 years in the Army and has never voted blue outside of the governor race in Pennsylvania, where he voted for Shapiro over Mastriano because Mastriano is an unhinged lunatic. He believes in COVID and is vaccinated. He believes the election was not rigged, and he doesn't buy into any major conspiracy theories that I know of outside of maybe Epstein-related stuff. But at this point, I think that's most of the US, said this person. He is definitely not a MAGA lunatic, but he certainly is frustrating to talk politics with. Okay, that's good to hear. Now this says, actions need to have consequences. Sure, MAGA will justify anything, but we have pointed out repeatedly that reluctant conservatives, the ones who vote conservative because they just can't bring themselves to vote blue, maybe are winnable in this Trump era. He says, I don't mean to sound cruel or selfish, but I can't help but feel like a full-blown accelerationist at this point, meaning this person sort of wants Trump to screw up the government. He wants Trump to misstep in many ways so that people feel the consequences of their own votes. Let me know what you guys think about that mindset in the comments below. Do you want to see Trump fuck up so that people understand that you can't just roll the die and vote for an unhinged lunatic? I think there's a very strong argument to be made that if Donald Trump does avoid any major missteps and the MAGA movement is cemented into our politics, that will be more harmful long-term than any short-term blunders with the economy. Someone in the comments said, sorry to say this because it's your dad and shit, but I hope the next 2 to 4 years are painful for him. And then the person who made the post responded, nah, I literally said this to him in the nicest way last night. Quote, I love you, Dad, but this is literally what you taught me growing up. Actions have consequences. If that's what it takes for you to see the bigger picture, then oh well. And I actually largely agree with that mindset. Now let's go over to this other story titled, Some Trump Voters Are Skeptical of His Opening Moves to Embrace Fellow Billionaires. In Mesa, Arizona, Enrique Lopez votes sporadically, but bought into Donald Trump's vows to fight for everyday workers, helping the Republican flip Arizona last year. Then, the home construction contractor watched how the billionaire president opened his second administration. Quote, so the rich control the poor, I guess. They do whatever they want. They get away with it, Lopez said after seeing Elon Musk, the world's richest man, and other tech moguls like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, at Trump's limited seating indoor inauguration, which was a perfect microcosm of Trump's entire mindset. He left his most loyal supporters out in the freezing cold. Not that he would bring them all in, not that there was space for that, but there were so many other ways to hold this ceremony without screwing over all of the people who traveled to DC for you, but he decided to just hold an intimate ceremony with all of his billionaire buddies. Now this says, Trump insists his overall agenda will help working and middle-class Americans. Notably, his executive orders intended to goose domestic energy production and lower consumer costs, which is what he thinks. Now, the 56-year-old Lopez, a resident of a Phoenix exurb, said he was also struck by the president's lack of emphasis on housing costs or consumer interests. I didn't hear anything about helping people out. Well, what you did hear is Trump probably call Democrats nicknames and free the January 6th insurrectionists. Isn't that what you voted for? Isn't that what MAGA voted for? According to AP Votecast, voters whose total household income in 2023 was under 50 grand were split between Trump and the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris, while Trump won more than half of voters whose household income was between 50K and 99K. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris won among voters whose household income was $100,000 or more. And it's funny because Kamala Harris was the one who had a three-pronged economic plan to help out first-time homebuyers, to help out business owners, to help out parents. I mean, she had an actual plan that was executable beyond just putting tariffs on other countries and hoping it doesn't backfire in the worst way possible, which we've seen that it usually does. The Associated Press spoke to a dozen voters in Arizona about Trump's inauguration and his first days in office. Some middle-class Trump voters say that much of what he has done reflects his campaign, especially regarding immigration and the targeting of LGBTQ-friendly policies. I'm happy about that, said Lorinda Parker, a 65-year-old who was happy about the immigration and was concerned about medical treatment for trans children. Yet, Parker expressed concerns about the company Trump keeps around him. The political class, she said, is a, quote, little insular world where power brokers are, quote, not paying attention to the people. Billionaires, she said, could provide valuable input as presidential advisors, but she likened the inauguration trio to a technocracy, saying they represent elitist thinking. We know more because we're so smart, and adding to her wish that Trump keeps a tight leash on them. The White House did not immediately respond Tuesday to a request for comment. But U.S. adults broadly think it is a bad thing if the president relies on billionaires for advice about government policy. And you know, that wording right there isn't even quite correct. If presidents want to use billionaires as a sounding board, I wouldn't care if Kamala Harris and Mark Cuban came up with some sort of plan. That's not what's happening here. Elon Musk tried very hard to get a room, an office in the White House, but he was kicked out by Susie Wiles. Elon Musk donated a large portion of his net worth, $200 million, plus the $44 billion he spent on Twitter, to make sure he can control the narrative, to make sure that he can help Trump out. That is way different than just using a billionaire as a sounding board for advice, which I wouldn't be happy with either way. But again, if Kamala Harris went to Mark Cuban and said, what do you think about this? That's different. That is not what's happening with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. These people are all working with Trump to entrench their own wealth and power in an oligarchical way. But this reads, the poll found warning flags specifically for Musk, whom Trump has empowered as chairman of the advisory Department of Government Efficiency. Oh, I didn't even bring up Doge. They gave Elon Musk a spot. He's leading a department where he has access to top secret documents. According to the poll, about 1/3 of Americans have a favorable view of Musk. I wonder if this poll was taken before or after the Nazi salute. That is down slightly from September. Support for the special commission he's helming is similarly low. Only about 3 in 10 U.S. adults strongly or somewhat approve of Trump's creation of Doge. About 4 in 10 disapprove, while the rest were neutral or didn't know enough to say anything. Democrats and labor-friendly activists, meanwhile, are pointing to Trump's embrace of fellow billionaires at his inauguration as they look for a message to galvanize opposition to the president. And you don't even have to look for it that hard. I mean, it's incredibly obvious. Trump is surrounding himself with billionaires because they are working to serve their own corporate or personal interests and not serve the American people. I've said this time and time again, and people get mad when I say this, but Trump is good at marketing himself. He's good at over-promising and under-delivering, but he's not good at the actual governing part, which is the part that matters. So when you get into the White House, you can't just bullshit your way through Congress and get them to come together. You actually have to have some sort of tact or diplomacy or skill. Now, when Trump's out on stage saying, deport all 21 million illegal immigrants, or he's saying, we're going to end the war in Ukraine on day one, it's a lot easier to sell yourself like that than it is to actually govern. And we are seeing that every single day. And I'll leave it at that. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.